Welcome to Politics Done Right on KPFT. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Give me a call at 713-526-5738. That is 713-526-KPFT. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host, and well, today Roxy is not here with us, but I'm here with the most capable Patrick. Patrick, how are you doing today?
You may call me the pseudo-Roxy. I'm doing pretty good tonight.
The K, he said he's going to be called the pseudo-Roxy, so we are here with the pseudo-Roxy. So how was your day, Patrick?
Oh, well, considering we live in a Democratic administration, pretty good.
You're having a good time, and good things are going to start happening for you, right?
Well, I'm kind of waiting for some of that, but that's what they say, right?
That's what they say. Well, that's what they say. Before I even get started, folks, I want to remind you guys that this is a call-in show. That number is 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-KPFT. Please remember, give us a call. We need to hear from you. We want to hear from you. These are important subjects that we want to handle, that we want to talk about. Now, before I get started, I also want to give some shout-outs here. I'd like to give a shout-out to The Monitor with Mark Bibawi on Mondays at 7 p.m. Remember, that's a great show, a very informative show. Likewise, I want to give a shout-out to Think Wing Radio with Michael Honig on Wednesdays at 10 p.m. And, of course, we want to continue the conversation, whatever conversations we have here, on the Facebook page, which is at Politics Done Right. In other words, if you go to Facebook and you just type Politics Done Right, you get to our Facebook page. I'd love to continue the discussion there so we can, whatever is not resolved on air, we can resolve it there. Likewise, folks, remember that the website for this show is politicsdoneright.com. And, of course, always go to kpft.org, where you can find several of the older shows. And for all the shows, again, you can go to politicsdoneright.com. Now, today is going to be a touchy subject. Very touchy subject, actually. I mean, will we be conned into war again using ISIS and ISIL as a pretext? Is it déjà vu all over again? Yes, it is. The drumbeat for war is getting stronger every day. This drumbeat is by the same suspects. Then, of course, the weakling, fearful of appearing weak, decide to grow one. The reality is that ISIL is dangerous. However, the question that must be asked is it for America to invest most of the resources to destroy this antiquated, or is it the job for America to destroy this antiquated medieval thinking group? Absolutely not. I'd like you to listen to Chuck Todd, a piece he did on MSNBC Daily Rundown to show the loss of touch between the pundit class, the politicians, and the American public. Is that one ready to go, Patrick?
Well, we've got the YouTube you sent me here. Is America responsible for the defense of Saudi Arabia and others in the region?
That is the one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, here it is.
You really want to know what's wrong with American foreign policy and also its reporting, Take a listen to what Chuck Todd has to say here.
As you bring up the Sunni states, and that's as important as anything, and that's why John Kerry in the next several days we anticipate will be going to that region. Likely stops could include Saudi Arabia, of course. Financing is so critical to this process as well. It will change the dynamic if the U.S. is invited into that region by Arab nations. Well, that's really like a big...
It should. I mean, and that's what, and I think that there, look, some distrust grew between particularly the Saudis and the Obama administration, all because this idea that the president didn't act in Syria a year ago. The Saudis were hoping, essentially, they didn't say it this way, but they wanted the U.S. to take Assad out. That's what they were hoping would happen. And then he backed off, and then it became this idea, well, maybe the U.S. won't be there when we need him to be there. But I think that that's part of John Kerry's challenge, is not only to convince him that, hey, there's no space between the Saudis and the United States, but it's also, hey, Saudi Arabia, all that money, all that military equipment you get from the United States, it's time for you to use it.
Now, is Chuck Todd really serious about Saudi Arabia being a bit upset that we did not invade Syria? For what? On their behalf? If they were concerned about the carnage occurring in Syria, maybe they should have done something about it. Why should we, Americans, take care of that? They're awash in money. They're awash in American military equipment. It seems to me, if they wanted something done, they should use it. Many of these folks that are what I consider puppets of the military-industrial complex are there attempting to put us back into war again. I wrote a piece for the Daily Coast that's on my website. Now, please take a look at it. You just have to click the button above, and you can actually get to the piece. And I'd love to hear what you think about it. This must stop. It definitely must stop. Think about what Chuck Todd just said. Saudi Arabia wanted us to go into Syria to take out Assad. What are we here in America? The military of these other countries, the people who spill blood for other countries, these guys are awash in money. These guys are kingdoms. These guys do all these things on their own. When America asks for help many times, what occurs? So, folks, that's not the case. So we are going to go to the blog. It's time for the weekly blog post. Again, folks, the blog is titled, Will We Be Conned into War Again? ISIS, ISIL, IS, whatever you want to call it, the pretext. This piece is not intended to be wonky or policy driven. It is all about common sense. The reality is that policy works or policy wonks have failed America over the last several decades. And Terry, I see that you're holding. We're coming after the vlog. They write op-eds that are ultimately proven wrong at best. In the case of some New York Times columnists, they were outright designed to mislead. No one should forget that New York Times Judith Miller was used as a conduit to mislead during the run-up to the Iraq War. Does it not feel like 2002 and 2003 all over again? The drumbeat to war is in full vogue, folks. What is sad is that the traditional media is using the same discredited cabal to bolster the base or to bolster the case for war. Except for a surprising blip on Fox News where Megyn Kelly seemed to challenge neocons John Bolton and Andrew C. McCarthy, the traditional media, true to form, is towing the military-industrial complex narrative. ISIL is bad, but not an existential threat. Common sense, please. America must not be conned into another war or irresponsible military action. And folks, I want you to listen clearly the rest of this blog, because this is important. This is not about trying to be a peacemonger or someone who does not believe in doing things. This is very important. Ask yourself a question. How can 10,000 or so men in pickup trucks with guns welded on the flatbed with a few captured American tanks be a threat to the world order? How would they function to sustain those they oppress without an eventual internal revolt? A contained ISIS can raise havoc in its immediate vicinity, but all or but will die like how any epidemic burns itself out. It will take longer if those in the vicinity capable of resisting the threat do not immediately resist. ISIS is playing to a West that is fearful of a vicious violence, beheadings, mass executions that they have never seen. They display these on propaganda videos as they threaten attacks on the West, America, and beyond. ISIS becomes its own media. It uses social media as a weapon on fear and as a method to get the West to engage. It needs the West to engage in order to put out the false narrative of a West predisposed to kill Muslims. Henceforth, an existential need for ISIS. The military-industrial complex and its puppets in the media and Congress play into the game. After all, it is a gain for them both. For the military-industrial complex, they profit from the bombs, military hardware, and services they provide. Congress keeps Americans in a state of fear. Americans remain paralyzed and take their eyes off the ball. They are no longer focused on a plutocracy extracting their wealth and squandering their economic future. Americans must wise up and make it absolutely clear to the President and Congress that ISIS is not an existential threat to the United States of America. Instead of spending billions over there, spend it over here. Improve our security, rebuild our infrastructure, invest in America's human capital. Those who believe this is naive should remember one thing. It does not matter how many terrorists we kill over there. We cannot kill them all. And any number, irrespective of a war over there, can hurt us over here. Let me pause. That's why we should never believe that crap that goes out there. We fight them over there before they come over here. Come on. Are we nursery school kids? It only takes one of them to get on an airplane to get over here and do some damage. Anyhow, additionally, terrorism from within, right-wing groups and American militias are likely a bigger threat to Americans than ISIS. The largest act of terrorism against America since 9/11 was by a right-wing entity, Timothy McVeigh, who detonated a truck bomb in front of the Alfred P. Morrow Federal Building in Oklahoma City in 1995. American taxpayer dollars are best spent over here on security and on improving our economy. Remember the following. Osama bin Laden was responsible for killing 2,996 Americans and residents in the 9/11 attacks. America's reaction to that horrific act effected the deaths so far of 5,281 American soldiers, heroes in Iraq and Afghanistan. Additionally, up to and likely more than 1.033 million innocent civilians died in Iraq, and north of 18,000 died in Afghanistan. And all these numbers can be reached or can be verified anywhere from reputable sources, folks. So think about that. It does not take rocket science to understand that America can never win the game of proportions, as we have unlimited killing potential. There is a better way, and the president must be given latitude to pursue it. This morning there was a piece on the Daily Rundown that was rather upsetting, and that was a piece that was just played. I vlogged about it, entertained a whole lot of discussions online about it. Quite interesting thoughts from many. But within the blog itself that I've posted, there is also a piece from David Gregory worth looking at. The sensible narrative from Dick Durbin and the other panelists should be played every time neocons and their proteges in the traditional media and Congress attempt to drive America into war once again. Once again. Folks, the telephone number is 713-526-5738. I really want to hear from you, your thoughts on war. Should we go back to war? 713-526-KPFT. Terry, how art thou doing, my dear friend?
Always great, my friend. Good to hear you.
Talk to me.
Well, there's so many things to touch on. Number one, the intrusion of the West vis-a-vis the Middle East. Let's remember this, what is now Saudi Arabia was founded in 1933.
Right.
And oil was discovered there, I believe, in 38 or 39.
Right.
So Aramco stands for what?
Arab and American. Yeah.
Let's always remember that. So you ask, why do we intervene on the Saudis' behalf? Why do we play their puppet for their defense? Why do we jump to their administrations? And that is because of the oil. Simple as that. The invasion of Iraq resulted in the oil that came out of Iraq to go to the French company Total, which manufactures and refines it right here down the road in Port Arthur, Texas. So that's the interlock there. Secondly, so Saudi Arabia was in 33. Iran was founded in 48 or 49, post-World War II. The Shah was installed in the middle 50s. We assassinated the South Vietnamese president in the late 50s. The Shah fell in the 70s. And since the Shah fell in Iran, there's been a consistent and constant drumbeat of, throwing the West out of the Middle East.
Right.
We don't seem to understand that as a nation state, that there are no bullets to kill everybody. No matter how many we kill, we'll kill one, two more will grow. And what I would like somebody with a modicum of intelligence to define for me what constitutes a threat to the United States. And I don't mean that cavalierly. I'm serious. Because when we're all children, all the bigger children are a threat to us. Do we kill them, or are we taught by our parents to go out there and learn how to get along with people? It's the same application here. Either we learn to get along with people, or, just like every other failed empire, the rest of the world will decide that one day it will be better off without the West, and specifically the United States. Then our enemies will outnumber our friends, and we will be obliterated.
Well said. And I couldn't have said that any better, Terry. I like the analogy, and I think it is imperative for us to remember that. But what I want to do, Terry, is I want to put you on hold. I'm keeping you there, and I want to go to somebody. Yay?
Hello?
Yes, Terry, I think we lost you, so call back. But go ahead, Yay.
Yeah, this is the first time I tuned into the program, and I listened to your intro, and you said that Osama bin Laden killed 2,000 so many people on 9/11.
Yes, sir.
Well, you should be aware that the FBI most wanted list does not list, and in fact negates his involvement in 9/11, saying that they have no evidence to tie him to that event. Also, George W. Bush, while he was president, was asked point blank, was he responsible? He said, I never said that. So you guys need to, do your research. I know you do a lot of research, but, so somehow we are under the impression that Osama bin Laden was the mastermind of 9/11. That is not correct.
Yeah, let me tell you that I don't think I should argue that point with you, because I think really it's between you and myself. I think it's immaterial. I don't think we need to agree on whether Osama did it or not, or all that sort of thing, for the gist of what for the point that I'm trying to make. Let's say it wasn't Osama bin Laden who did that. Somebody did. Okay? And the whole
his name is not Osama bin Laden, according to the evidence that we have there. Right. So I don't. That makes no sense to me to say that. Well, it doesn't matter.
No, you have
to say he did it. For argument's sake, that's ridiculous.
Let me explain what I mean by that. Okay, why I said it doesn't really matter, The discussion here is about America's reaction when it is attacked by an external force. Whether that external force was Osama bin Laden or anybody else is really immaterial, because what I'm trying to look at is the action. And that is what I would like all Americans to start looking at, because what we get a lot of times, my friend, is we get into personalities and persons and exactitudes and that sort of thing. And what happens is that we're left holding the bags. Because let me give an example between you and myself right now. You and I could get into an extended discussion as to whether Osama bin Laden did it or not. We could do that. We could
Either he did or he didn't. I mean, that's my point.
Right.
All the other stuff you're trying to say, I understand. But either he did or he didn't. Now, we're under the impression as the American people that he had something to do with it. Factually, he didn't. So let's not continue to put him at the head of that thing when that's not his thing.
No.
That's all I'm saying. I understand your point.
Right, and it's fine. That is fine. I'll be honest with you. I don't have that piece of information that you're talking about. I mean, I'd love for you to go to Politics Done Right on the website and cite that information for me, because like I always tell everybody who calls this show, this is a fact-based show and a fact-based space. So if you have whatever it is to refute me, I have no problems coming back to you and say, my dear brother, you are absolutely right. Because what we want here is enlightened information. So I appreciate that you'll go to the Facebook page, Politics Done Right, and give me your information, and we'll talk about it on Facebook, and we'll come back here on air and talk about it as well. Sounds good to you?
Sounds good if everybody themselves goes to the FBI most wanted list and looks for themselves.
Well,
it's not an obscure point.
Well, you know, the thing about that's fine. That would be fine, my dear friend. So
Okay.
Keep calling, okay? And
Okay.
keep listening. Take care, buddy. Paula.
Hi.
How you doing, Paula?
I'm good. Thanks for taking my call.
Absolutely. Talk to me.
So I guess I just kind of wanted to bring up maybe the strategic utility in relaunching, or not even, we haven't even left yet, military action in Iraq or Syria. The main thing is that the narrative of kind of Al-Qaeda and its like derivative groups, or its, whatever ISIL is essentially, created from the runoff of Al-Qaeda. Their narrative from the beginning has, been that they're essentially trying to combat, these kind of corrupt regimes that have taken over the Middle East, generally sponsored by the U.S., and that they're against, they're fighting against, Western intervention or just militarism in general. So by going in with the exact same strategy, we're just creating, we're kind of justifying their movement as a whole. We're creating a fertile recruiting ground. I just don't see, what the strategic, value there is in this, except for maybe cleansing our guilt, essentially, for feeling like we haven't accomplished anything.
Well, haven't accomplished anything. There are a lot of dead people wouldn't think we haven't accomplished anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we haven't accomplished anything. We've made it much worse, and if anything, we've created a power vacuum.
Right.
So that these groups can sweep through exactly with 10,000, people on a back of a truck.
And that is what drives me crazy, right? We are a superpower. Yeah. We have no equal, and that's the reality. We have no equal.
And as a hegemon, we don't even attempt to really, attempt to find peace through any kind of diplomatic recourse. We kind of basically wipe our asses with the opinion of the UN, even though we fund them, essentially making them, a completely toothless organization. We've essentially we've cut all opportunities for there to be any diplomatic recourse for this. We haven't really done a very good job of getting support of any other Arab nations, and frankly, we're shy. We'd be too embarrassed to essentially side with Assad on this one and see if we can at least get his support. you know.
Let me
Which
ask
would be
you
the
something.
frankly logical thing to do. I mean, this isn't his country.
Right.
And he's already offered, you know, to kind of open that up.
It is funny because did you listen to the first part of the show when I played the Chuck Todd piece from this morning?
No, I kind of got into my car and I was with my dog.
No problem with
God.
this. Let me tell you why I brought that up. Because, and by the way, before I go, let me do a station ID because this is KPFT. You can reach us and give us a call at 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. Normally, we have the transmitters in here. Could you give me the name on the transmitters for me?
Yeah, if you're listening in, I'm sorry, the name of the transmitters?
Yeah, the different stations.
Well, in Galveston, we're on 89.5, and in Goodrich Livingston, we're on 90.3.
Thank you very much. So anyhow, this is KPFT, folks. Remember, this is a call-in show. Please give us a call at 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. But Paula, what Chuck Todd was saying is he actually said, you know, America needs to start, or the president is in effect shopping around these different Arab republics now to get a buy-in. But, you know, it's going to be kind of difficult because Saudi Arabia has lost some faith in President of the United States because the president had said he would have invaded, he was going to invade Syria, and he didn't. So the Saudi Arabians are mad, the Saudis are mad that he didn't invade Assad, Syria. And now that they're mad, it may be difficult for us to reach some sort of an arrangement with them to help us.
We should be mad at Saudi Arabia for funding every jihadist group that's ever been around.
Thank you. And it is amazing to me. And what drives me when I talk a whole lot about reporting and the reporting that Americans get in general, this is what drives me crazy. Think about this, Paula. How could Chuck Todd go on air and make that mention about Saudi Arabia being upset with the president? The president didn't invade didn't invade Syria. But what he was able to accomplish in Syria is to get Syria to give up its weapons without having to kill innocent Syrians, without having to drop a bomb in Syria, without having to have Americans in danger in Syria.
I mean, I think
that is
hard to
weakness.
stay out of that quagmire, frankly, because we didn't know who we would be funding if we were funding the rebels.
But I want to take it.
I think what the U.S. media has done very well is to essentially discourage any kind of diplomatic or even economic solution, you know, by sanctions whatever.
I think that is the point I was trying to make. In other words, shouldn't it have been a positive that we got some results without invading, and for an American journalist to come on TV and say, well, this guy is mad because we didn't effect violence in some other country to get a result? I mean, that is simply crazy. And what I'm saying specifically is that our media, driven by what I call the military-industrial complex, and by the way, you said, you know, and Terry was talking about this before, there are reasons why we need to have an action. I was listening to the show 2 shows ago. The Monitor comes on earlier at 7 o'clock. And on the Monitor, what one of the persons said is that Colin Powell was talking in an interview with the Military magazine, and he said, we don't have any enemies. In other words, he was trying to justify how can we have such a large army, such a large military, no enemies. We need an enemy. We have to keep right. We need these. We need these enemies so that we can have reason to have a big military, so that the military-industrial complex can remain funded. Paula, is there anything else you want to add before I move on to Tracy?
No, you pretty much covered it, and thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for calling in, Paula. Please keep listening. Please keep calling.
Will do.
Tracy, talk to me.
Yes. Hey, how you doing? I didn't catch your name. I'm sorry.
Egberto.
I'm sorry?
Egberto.
Okay,
that's good enough.
Well, I guess I'm just going to give an opinion here. It just seems to me, though, that, let's just use a metaphor. Say you're living in a bad neighborhood. You're worried about your security, which I think a lot of Americans are. I mean, regardless, to me, the big picture would be, or the priorities would be, obviously have intelligence over there, but I think our immigration policy or our open borders is just an invitation to, like leaving your back door open in your house every night.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think the priority should be for the administration is to really secure our borders from letting bad characters, you know, drift across the border and, you know, assimilating into our population and then, you know, doing something that we're all going to be unhappy about. And at the same time, you know, employ some long-term strategy, you know, regardless of whether we should have a big army or not. You know, we already have one and we already have enemies. We can't undo that fact, really. We can only go forward. And to me, it seems like the two things would be to increase our intelligence about what's going on over there with minimal manpower, or boots on the ground, as they call it, and secure our borders like we've never done before. Secure our immigration so that we know exactly who's coming in and out of this country.
You know, I don't think, Tracy, anybody would disagree with what you just said. The problem is that securing the border to you and to me may mean something completely different than to those people who are trying to keep those others out of this country. In other words, I agree with you 100%. We should have secure borders. We should know every single person that is coming across those borders to come into America. I mean, think about all the monies that we spent in Iraq. Think about all the monies we spent in Afghanistan, now that we're spending in Syria and all these other places. If we were to spend that money here to do exactly what you said, secure the borders, that would be a good thing because, again, it would be a lot less expensive than building more bombs, building more tanks, building more airplanes, losing American lives over there, if we simply kept more boots on the ground right at our borders and also work on other types of security. I mean, it's what you've said, it's a no-brainer, and I think everybody should really be able to agree on that, but we have to first come to the conclusion that what we have as a foreign policy relative to war, relative to these other states in the Middle East, is a sheer disaster. And, you know, you think about it, Paula said something earlier, which is very true. You listen to the media today, you don't get the type of information, and if you try to do if you try to have diplomatic actions that are more on diplomacy and less on war, the media characterizes you as weak. That's a problem. When did diplomacy means weakness?
Well, I don't know. Honestly, I can answer that question. I certainly believe I'm not really a warmonger at all. I mean, you know, when I watched us invade Iraq, back then, I thought that was a terrible idea. You know, I don't step on the ant bed unless you know, my philosophy is don't step on the ant bed, and that's what we've done. So I don't think we can, you know, put the toothpaste back in the tube, you know, so we have to live with you know, what is, quote unquote, you know, and the situation now is that we have, you know, basically chaos over there in a good part of the Islamic world, in which, you know, the factions, Sunnis and the Shiites, and, you know, everybody's got, you know, playing their cards.
But you know what's interesting?
And we're out. We got out of there, and perhaps we should have kept a presence there, because now that there is no presence, you know, it's not going to be an easy decision if we wanted to enter ourselves over there.
You know what is so interesting?
Once we're out.
Here's the funny thing.
Meanwhile, the bad guys are getting bigger and bigger.
Right. Here's the funny thing about it, and I find this so ironic, how poorly the news media gives the information. What just rolled off your tongue is exactly what shows on TV. We should have kept the soldiers there, and maybe this would not have occurred.
Some of them, anyway.
Okay, but or some of them, right? The reality is there are a lot of them there. Has anybody really asked, how could we have reacted as quickly as we could to bomb the whole you-know-what out of ISIS by just presidential order? You don't move material that quickly across the world. We never. I think
we have some bases.
Exactly. Exactly. And what I'm saying is, but the narrative that you hear on TV is somehow this weak president went ahead and just got these troops out of Iraq, troops that were going to be remaining in barracks anyway, and we're not going to be going out there fighting. The narrative is all wrong. The reality is we don't, first of all, do we want to be in a permanent state of war? I mean, the reality is whenever we leave, there was going to be some normalization that would have occurred. In other words, so do we leave now or do we leave then? I think it is Carrie who once said, who wants to be the last man to die for a...
Well, all I can say is I gotta go. But
yes.
Is what I said in the first place. Is I think the fear that inhabits most people's hearts here in the United States, it's great, and no, we certainly don't want to go back. Nobody wants to get totally involved in soldiers dying and resources going back over there. But like I said in the first place, I think what lurks in everybody's heart is the fear that some madman will come right across the Rio Grande,
right,
and light us up, and
exactly.
Then what will we do about that? So that's what I fear. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week,
right?
But there's somebody that's thinking about that. If I can think about it, they're thinking.
Oh, absolutely. Look, it's. Thank you for calling, Tracy. Please keep calling. I agree with you on what you're saying as far as yes, we need to secure the border, but we can't have policy based on fear. We have to have policy based on fact-based information and fact-based action. But look, thank you very much for calling, my friend. Sure. You have a good one. Noah, talk to me.
Igberto, it's good to catch your show. I've heard about it. It's my first time catching it.
Well, I appreciate you calling, my dear friend. Talk to me.
Yes, I'm curious what you think about the Kurds and their role in the affairs that have been covered on the news going forward. Because I think one of the many not well covered stories the last escapades in the Middle East recently in the last 10, 12 years have been about the Kurds, the possibility, I'm doing my air quotes, the Kurdistan idea, and the relationship between that group of people, their neighbors, and our political arrangement with them. Because I know a bunch of them are
right.
One of the organizations on the terrorist list, I think that has something to do with our relationship with Turkey.
Right.
But as far as effectiveness, functionality, and they seem to me to be the best teammate.
For the United States?
For the United States.
Well, here's the deal, and I'm only going to speak about the portion that I know, but before I go there, I want to remind folks, this is a call-in show, 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. This is KPFT. Remember to visit us at kpft.org, and if you like our shows, remember to give us a little tip at the tip jar as well. But anyway, this is community radio. Noah, before I answer that, I want to go back to something that Vice President Biden said. Iraq was never a natural fit among its people, right? It was a creation.
Right.
It was a creation among the, I guess you call them the Kurds, the Sunnis, and the Shias.
Correct.
Okay. Now, Biden had suggested a while back that the area would be divided. It would best be served if divided into 3 different regions, and he gave his specific reasons why. And believe it or not, it's sort of self-segregated in that it has begun to self-segregate in that particular manner. The Kurds have been so far, I think, the most successful in having things going right. So I can understand why you would say that they would do. They're good partners for the United States. Now there are some issues between Kurds, the Kurdistan, what they would want to create Kurdistan and Turkey. And I'll be honest with you, I do not know the complete history behind that. However, as I understand it, Turkey would not be very happy to have an independent Kurdistan because of some issues with some of the population on its own borders. So, I mean, so that would create some issues. And if I recall as well, there are no natural friends between what would be Kurdistan and the rest of its surrounding environment. So that would be problematic. I don't think they could quite be self-sufficient. I don't think if I recall my geography correctly, I don't even know if they have any way. I think they're completely surrounded. So I mean,
right,
yeah.
Syria, Iraq, and Turkey, I believe.
Right. So I it would be sort of a difficult. It would sort of be a difficult state. But that said, they have been the most stable thus far. I mean, they have been a lot more stable than even the folks the Shias in Baghdad. So I could understand why, we could consider it a good ally. I mean, a more stable ally. But I think all in all together, what was proven over with ISIS is that even the facade of a stable Kurdistan or stable Kurds community was rapidly run over by these guys in pickup trucks that were really instilling fear in these people. So, I mean, if you're not, look, let me tell you one of the things that I feel about this whole issue as well. If you're not willing to fight to protect your land, right? Should America be willing to fight to protect it for you? I think that is one of the basic action. What do you think?
I do as well, and I guess that's one of the big reasons why I'm in support of some sort of working with some official level, working with the Kurds, because you have a group of people who the group, the Peshmerga, that was trapped up on the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also have this well-organized military group that has been defeating ISIS in the north of Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
And so somehow, when you have a clear line, and to talk about Syria, there was no real clear line of who was what, and the organization of the people fighting against the Assad regime was so complex that to support them would have been dangerous to our interests.
Well, I mean,
with the Kurds, it seems like it's pretty well defined, at least in that portion of the north where they are having success fighting ISIS.
Yeah, I mean, they're defined. According to them, they didn't have the weapons. America started to give them weapons, and they started to push these guys out. Of course, they started to push ISIS out along with a lot of the airstrikes that we were providing them as well. So in effect, we became the Air Force to the Kurds. I mean, American became the Kurds Air Force, and I mean, you have look. There is one of the callers to the Coffee Party show last week said he was sort of disappointed in the stance that I was taking, because he said I was very passionate when it was time to come to the defense of the folks on the mountains, and you remember those folks that were, I don't remember what the place was. I came out strongly in their defense. And he said, why am I not defending the Kurds or the others? And my contention is, look, why then am I not defending the folks in Sudan? Why am I not defending the folks in Chad? Why am I not defending the folks in Liberia? Why am I? And I can go country after country after country.
Right.
And you run into this trouble where you say, we cannot police the entire world. We can do the best that we can. And how do we determine the best that we can? Folks, that number is 713-526-5738. We have 4 lines open. You can give me a call, 713-526-5738. But yes, Noah, so I mean, the bottom line is, where does it end? And the goal of the blog that I wrote for this particular show was, my expectation was that we don't go ahead and rush into war again. Because the last time we got into war, we went on false premises. I don't see us going into war on as false a premise as we did before, as we did under President Bush. But I surely don't think there is any way that we can deny that going back into war again now, under the premise that there's some clear and present danger, that there's some existential reason for us to do so. There is absolutely no reason for that. And if you watch the president's interview with Chuck Todd on Sunday on Meet the Press, he in effect said that. But he walked it slowly for the fear that he had coming from the right wing. It was evident. He didn't want to say, let me give a good example, and then I'm going to come back to you, Terry, in a little bit. Let me give a great example of what's happening out here. And folks, the number is 713-526-5738. We now have 5 lines open, but 713-526-5738. Here's the interesting thing. The president went to a fundraiser last week, and he told the folks, you know, the ISIS problem isn't as bad as the news media would lend you to believe it is. And then he said social media has a manner of exacerbating the way things appear, which is the truth. You know, I mean, as Americans, we got scared when 2 journalists, and this is horrific, I understand, this is horrific, this is terrible, but we got terrified when 2 journalists got beheaded. This horrific act was terrible. These terrorists put these horrific acts on Facebook, YouTube, Tumblr, and everywhere else for the world to see. The world saw it. The world, and specifically the West, internalized that could happen anywhere on the planet. And here's the truth, folks. That can happen anywhere on the planet, with or without ISIS. You can get shot anywhere, with or without ISIS. But the terror with which they did these acts, to simply attempt to make America change policy, is what's really dangerous. And let me tell you what I mean by what's really making this dangerous. Any terrorist who believes they can effect change by cutting somebody's head off, throwing it up on YouTube, and talking into that camera and saying, the next head is going to be you guys in the West. And that would be a precursor to us changing, or rather, if we decide to change policy based on these kinds of acts, it will continue to happen by design. As I mentioned in the blog post, and this is very important, ISIS needs us to be belligerent. ISIS needs us to fight. ISIS needs us to come and do something and destroy innocent people while we try to destroy them. Because then, that is what they will use to keep their power. And what do I mean by that? You know, when I always think about when people say, oh, we need to get them over there so that they don't get us over here. When somebody says something as silly as that, I normally say, okay, let's take this one step at a time. We kill them over there. When we kill them, if we don't get them all, some one of them can jump on a plane, get over here, and do some damage. In the process of killing them, we also killed a whole lot of innocent other people out there. And those innocent other people that we've killed, they have relatives. And they see not what we see here in the United States. They saw the blood, guts, tears, broken bones, and everything else. And that they internalize, and they now become the believers that we Americans don't like them. And they are become the new terrorists. So we make more terrorists. Now, so whenever one says we kill them over there, remember we're not only killing terrorists over there, we're killing other people with them, and we can never kill them all, which means some may get over here. So it is silly to say that. Now, if you simply don't engage these folks now, and you contain these folks, you let those people that are most close or that are closest to them contain those folks, what then happens? What happens to Ebola when it doesn't have a carrier? It burns itself out. ISIS doesn't have the wherewithal after the money that it has stolen in Mosul and these other towns dries up. What does it have? How does it sustain the land, the lands that it's acquired? It cannot. It cannot sustain it. at all unless we engage. Now, we engage, then they get the necessary pieces of equipment. They get the necessary support from all those other states that think they're actually fighting the great old Satan. Terry, come on in.
How many Americans, Egberto, do you think have been killed by ISIS?
I only know of 2. Can you tell me more?
No, I believe that's all there's been. How many Americans have been killed by Israel in the last 10 years?
Quite a few.
Have we invaded Israel?
I don't have the number. Do you have it?
I don't have the exact number, but I know it's more than 2.
Right.
Have we invaded Israel?
No, we haven't.
Okay. Well, how many of the 19 hijackers and terrorists in the 9/11 attack were Saudi?
Most of them were.
15 of the 19 were.
Right.
Did we attack Saudi Arabia?
No, we didn't.
Was Al-Qaeda in Iraq?
No, they weren't.
How many military bases do we have right now within a 500-mile radius of Iran?
Several.
40.
So there you go.
Now, when you talk about threats, those sound like legitimate threats. If we are going to prosecute policy based on these existential threats, and if the crucible of these threats is the wanton murder of Americans, it seems to me that we have many other places to go.
You know, that is simply, Terry, a bit too simple. And the problem is, it is simple and it is not reported.
Well, I oversimplified it intentionally.
I know that.
Because the world isn't that simple. There's blowback for every action, and reaction has consequences. And so I went through that exercise with you earlier, where I showed you, the genesis of Saudi Empire.
Right, Aramco. Right.
Right. The genesis of the division of the Middle East was British and American involvement.
Right.
Everywhere we stuck our finger, everywhere we tried to play nation building, we failed miserably, and we continue to do the same thing over and over and over again. And we don't have the intellectual horsepower to understand that the very definition of insanity is what we've done over the last 50 years.
And that is
going to have to be some sort of change, because what we have done is not only not sustainable, but is it ultimately going to lead to our destruction if we continue along this path.
The thing about it, Terry, is that unfortunately, most of the people in power, it doesn't necessarily take a smart person to be in power. And that is what we have. When you look at somebody like Wolfowitz, who's been wrong every single time, and he still has the credibility required to appear on national TV and dictate policy.
Yes, but he only appears on the right-wing sites who are basically propaganda arms.
Well, ironically, he actually appeared on NBC, MSNBC, and CNN, and
they have all become right-wing propaganda.
Right. Well, I guess if you look at it that way, I think that there's something that I've been saying for quite a long time, that there really is no real liberal media to speak about. What we have is media that's controlled and by one of many entities, one of them being the defense, the military-industrial complex. And for those people who really wonder why we must have wars and why we must have all these different things around the world, it is exactly that reason, because that is what these guys know. I mean, we can go into a whole lot of all types of policies that we execute here. Why is it that wind energy isn't, wind energy and solar energy not taking off as it should? Because we have these entities that prevent these things from occurring. Why is it that we must always have a military conflict going on? Because these guys need to be building bombs. I mean, it sounds, to a lot of people are going to say, there goes that left winger. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay.
Well, the facts. And I love it when you say that this is a fact-based show.
Right.
This is a fact. In the 238 years of the existence of this country, we have been at war over 220 years.
Right.
Now, that is a fact. Look it up. Don't take my word.
Oh, no. You're not telling me nothing. You're not telling me anything I don't know.
Oh,
I know that.
But
there were very
who may or may not believe that.
There are very few years in which we had no wars, and if I recall right, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I have to go to another call if I'm wrong. Check out. I think Carter was the one who had the only presidency without at one time without a war. But let me take on Shwan from Kurdistan. Shwan,
sure.
Talk to me.
I can give you a million reasons that you can, like, you guys should support the Kurds. We are Kurds. We have been a good allies for the U.S. for decades.
Mm-hmm.
I am a Kurd. I was a linguist for the U.S. Army for almost 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
We are Kurds. We consider ourselves a second U.S. citizen. And yes, now we need help from the U.S. because this ISIS, they have the U.S. weapons.
Mm-hmm.
And they are strong because they are getting support from the all other Arab countries.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm telling you the Kurds, they need the U.S. support because we are now weak. We have the strongest army, but we don't have the weapon. That's our, that's the weaknesses that we have. That's why we need the support from the U.S. Army. We don't need the army to put the foot in the country, but we need the U.S. to help us with the weapon. That's all we need because we don't have it. And all other Arab countries, they don't help us. We are surrounded by the enemies, by Turkish, by the Iran, by the Arabs, by all of them. None of us are like us.
That is what I was telling. The difficulty of having a Kurdistan is that, in effect, you're surrounded. You're surrounded. If you're not part of a strong particular country as Iraq or whatever, you're actually surrounded by people who don't like you.
Yeah, you're right. Nobody's like us. They call us the second Jewish in the country. Nobody's like us.
Right.
We're like a bandit country. We are not even a country. We've been struggling for decades. Nobody helps us.
Look,
nobody like us. So we have no options. We're getting killed. Our women get kidnapped. Our kids get kidnapped every second day. My family are in danger. My family is dangerous first because I was working for the U.S. Army. I was a linguist. I was helping the U.S. Army there for 2 years.
Shwan.
Yes, sir.
I'm near a tight, so give me a quick closing statement, and then I got to go. But I am with you, and you want to defend yourself, I am with you. Go ahead. Quick statement.
My statement is just the Kurds need the support from the Army. You need the support from this government. That's all I can say. If you guys help us with anything, that's all we need. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
God bless America.
Thank you very much, Shwan, for calling in, and keep listening, keep calling, and keep giving us information. Terry, give me a quick closer. 15 seconds. Oh, did I lose Terry? Okay, sorry about that, Terry. I think we lost you. But anyhow, folks, this is the end of the show. I want to thank everybody for listening. Please remember to go to Politics Done Right on Facebook. Let's continue the conversation. You can go to Politics Done Right, the website. And we are out of here, my dear friend. Thank you very much for listening to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. You can personally reach me by sending an email to egberto@politicsdoneright.com. Remember, Egberto is spelled E-G-B-E-R-T-O. Change starts with you. 90.1 KPFT gives you information not tainted by corporate interest. Please visit kpft.org and contribute. Let's ensure continued access to real information and news remain available to all. Again, thank you very much for listening to Politics Done Right.